So I walk out and all the agents are like pushing to talk to me. Hi, I'm oh my God, Alexis, you were great. Yo, I have an audition for you. Yo, I got this thing. Everyone's trying to get me. On the drive home, my wife reads out a note. Like, I was on cloud nine, man. I was like, I'm the greatest actor of all time, you know? I'm like, me, Humphrey Bogart, Robert De Niro, the greatest, you know? Icons, you know? I was thinking, you know, where in LA do I want to live? You know, that's what I'm thinking already. And my wife, who had been kind of a bit standoffish the whole time, she reads out like a 7-page note on her phone in the Uber home. It was so uncomfortable. The Uber driver was looking at me through the rearview mirror like, yo, dude, are you good? And it was about all of the things that she wanted me to do differently in the relationship and ways that I've neglected the house. It was really uncomfortable for me to hear. And I kept thinking, like, why would you do this tonight? On one of the most proud moments of my career, why would you do this? And as we would have conversations after that, it was a very awkward couple of weeks because I'm thinking, does she want to leave me? Like, I didn't know I failed so bad as a husband. I've been working hard, but sometimes you lose focus on what's important. And when I asked her, I said, why would you do it that night? You know, I was on cloud nine. And she said, I've been trying to do it for months, but I didn't want to distract you because I knew how important this showcase was to you. And I was just holding on for dear life so that I could wait until I knew it wouldn't like ruin your dreams. And that's when I realized, like, oh, she's not mad at me. She loves me. She loves me at a level that most people don't.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a new episode of Together to Inspire. This is the first episode that I'm running an interview in English, and I want to thank Alexis Guerreros to be the first international guest here at Together to Inspire. So thank you very much for being here, Alexis.
Buddy, it's an honor, and I couldn't tell this was your first interview in English. You're crushing it.
Thank you. I hope it's going to be like this for the entire interview. Who knows?
We'll see. We'll do it together. We'll inspire it together.
Oh, yeah. I love that. So this is one of those strange situations in which I know Alexis, but you don't know Alexis. But the problem is that Alexis is pretty famous in New York City. Can we say that?
Yeah. I mean, I get stopped and recognized every once in a while, like modern celebrity, right? Like the people who know me, and the people who don't have no clue who I am. And I kind of like that.
Okay. And in Italy, they don't know you. No? I mean, I know you. My fiancé knows you.
Not yet.
Yeah, but I'm waiting for you to come here in Italy and do the same thing that you do in America, because I would love that.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So just a few words about Alexis. Alexis, and tell me if I say something wrong, but, I want to be sure. Alexis is one of the hosts of a TV show running by CBS in America. The name of the show is Golazo. So
that's the network.
That's the network.
Like,
okay.
Yeah, CBS started a new network just for soccer, or calcio, or football. It's called Golazo Network, but the show is called Morning Footy.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay. So you can understand we are talking about soccer here.
Yeah.
And Alexis is a soccer analyst. But you told me that you are the funny guy on the show, right?
Yeah, so I'm a stand-up comedian since 2009.
Okay.
And in 2015, I started doing podcasts and content in the world of soccer, and that led to this. So, clearly, you could see the double chin on this, right? Like, I'm not a player. I didn't play growing up. I mean, I played growing up, but I didn't play at a very high level.
Okay.
I've always loved the sport, but what brought me to the sport was talking about it in a creative and funny and innovative way. Very different from how a lot of, football or soccer content is done in the U.S.
Yeah. And just to give you a bit of perspective of the people that are working with Alexis in this show, just few names: David Beckham, Thierry Henry, and lately Alessandro Del Piero. Am I correct?
Yeah. Those are all coworkers.
We're talking about, one of those best footballers ever. How you deal with that? How you deal to have a co-worker like this?
I think, one of the things that makes me stand out from everyone else is, I revere these people. You know what I mean? I may not have tried to play like them, but I would wake up at any hour in the morning on a weekend to watch them be great at what they do. So I want everyone to understand that even though I didn't play, I view them, I see them as legends. They are gods to me, walking amongst this earth the same way they are to anyone else. The difference is the moment you get on the level that I'm at, which is an interview or you're on stage with me or a show with me, I will treat you the way I would treat anybody else.
Okay.
And that's, we're going to do jokes together. I'm not going to treat you like, oh my God, you're here. And blah, blah. They hear that all the time. I'm going to treat them a little differently. And I think 99.9% of the time it works to my favor. And I think they love that. I think most of the people that I interview just love the fact that I treat them like anybody else. Even though we're talking about your, amazing accomplishments, your insane talent. But I'm gonna talk to you like I would talk to anybody else.
So no white gloves.
Yeah, no kid gloves.
Not at all
in America. No. But I'm not trying to, get anything out of you. It's not, what we call gotcha stuff out here. We're not really doing that. For the most part, what we're trying to do is just, I'm trying to have a good time. I want people to see your personality, not the personality you typically show in media. I want people to see like what it would be like to sit next to you at a barbecue or at a bar or, watching a game. I want people to experience that.
That's so nice. It's not that common to see that part of these people, no?
No, it's not easy either to get that out of them. They're very guarded.
Why Alexis is here with us today, apart from the fact he's a popular person in the United States, I really, really think that his story, his life story and professional story could be and is inspiring. I mean, it has been inspiring for me, and I think it's going to be inspiring for all the people that will listen to this interview. We had a chat before this interview, and he told me about everything he went through since the childhood, basically. Alexis, correct me if I'm wrong, but I basically found 4 important parts during your life that I want you to go through with us today. So the first part is where you grew up, because you told me that was a very poor environment. And the story behind your childhood is very interesting. The second part is how you ended up in a business university studying business instead of studying filmmaking.
Yeah.
And then how you ended up very young. We're talking about when you were like 25 years old. Am I correct? At Staples to be manager of people that were more senior than you. And then where you are today. So 4 parts of your life. Can you please tell us and start with the first part about your childhood?
Yeah. So my family are Cuban immigrants. My father's actually from Uruguay, but I grew up without a father. So I mainly lived, not mainly, I 100% of my life lived with just the Cuban side of my family. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm Cuban American.
Okay.
And that's the other thing for international folks. When Americans say they are Cuban or Italian, they mean like that's their heritage, because the U.S. is literally a country filled with immigrants. So we never say we're American. Well, of course we're American. When we leave, all the people in Europe remind us we're American every time we ask for a glass of water at a restaurant. When I say I'm Cuban, I simply mean that's my background. I'm first generation American. So my family's all from Cuba. They had to find a place where they had a contact in the U.S. that would essentially say, yes, you can live here. So for some reason, 99% of Cubans end up in Miami. My family ended up in a city called Newark, New Jersey. It's, at the time I was growing up, it was the crack capital of the world, the murder capital of the world, and something called carjacking, which I don't think happens in Europe. It's a very American problem.
Where is that?
The capital now is South Africa. Okay. It's where someone essentially puts a gun into the window of your car or points it at you while you're driving or at a red light or parked and says, give me your car. Around the time I was a kid in the U.S., it became very popular to have those keys that we call them key fobs, the little thing that you click the buttons. You needed to have that on you in order for the car to start. They thought that'll stop car theft. And then thieves were like, well, what if we rob you while you're driving the car? And now we have your keys. It worked. So it became very popular here in Newark. It's a very dangerous place. Like, a lot of my friends ended up in gangs. I mean, when we were very young, we were just running around being stupid. But eventually, some of them started dealing drugs. Some of them joined gangs. Some of their parents were involved with either drug use or drug sales, and they got arrested or they got in a lot of trouble and, turned them to a life on the streets. So I saw a lot of that growing up. And my goal was always to get out of Newark. You know, it was just, and not because I didn't like Newark. I think Newark made me who I am. I always show a lot of respect to the city of Newark. All I want in this life, like one of my main goals, is for the city of Newark to be proud of me. I don't know what that's going to take, but I want kids in Newark to look at my story and say, oh, there's a way out of here that doesn't just involve sports, you know, or being a rapper, which is very popular in Newark. Like there's another way out. And it took everything I had. I worked at a factory when I was 11 years old. So I just went there at 11 years old and lied and said I was 16, which is the minimum age to work. And they were like, all right, we'll pay you cash. We realize you're lying. But I got a job there, and I worked 7 days a week all through high school, which is grade 9 through 12. I worked 7 days a week all through college and university. Because I just needed to pay my bills and stuff. But that's where I grew up. It's a really rough place, but I'm happy I made it out.
Can I ask you a question? What made you avoid those bad situations that you were describing before?
A little bit of luck and a little bit of, I think a lot of it came from my family. You know, my grandfather was a very hard worker. My mother was a very hard worker. She worked 5 jobs at the same time while I was growing up. She used to tell me stories that her and my aunt, when they first got to this country, it was her, my aunt, and my grandfather. So the 3 of them came. They worked so many jobs and they didn't have much money. So my aunt would wear one of the pair of pants on one day, or trousers, and my mom would wear the other trousers. And they only had 2, so they would keep swapping.
Wow.
And they would wash it and swap, wash and swap. And they would come home and sleep for 4 hours and go do their next job, come back and sleep for 2 hours and go to the next job. And it was whatever it took to survive in a new country, because the last thing they wanted to do was go back to Cuba. So I had that mentality of like, you know, it takes a lot of work to survive. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication to survive. I was pretty lazy growing up, you know, compared to them, but I always knew I would have to work hard. And so whenever I was given an opportunity to do something that I even enjoyed remotely, I would always work really hard at it.
Okay.
You know, my mother always made fun of me. Homework is very popular in the States, which, you know, I used to come home, my book bag or my backpack was rolled up in my hand. And my mom's like, where are your books? And I'm like, oh, I did all my homework in school. You know, I saw the thing and, you know, I did it as whenever the teacher would tell us what the next homework is, I would just do it quickly there. So I didn't have to, so I could go home and play video games or go home and do something else.
That's smart.
Yeah. I thought that was genius. My mother was so mad. And then thank God I did that, because it prepared me for working after school. Because then I did all my homework. I could go straight to work.
Yeah.
And I would work until like 10 o'clock, go home, eat real quick, and go to bed and wake up and go to school the next day.
Wow.
But I wanted nice clothes, at least the best I could afford with like a pretty bad job. And I knew my mother wasn't going to get that for me. But my mother and my family, my grandfather in particular, who raised me like I was his own son, they set the stage for nothing is going to come easy. Nothing is going to come, you know, with, you know, doing something in a lazy way. You're going to have to work really hard. But I always said, I'm going to do something I want to do. And that was always my thing. It's like, I never want to work at something that makes me annoyed or I regret doing it, because I hated working in that factory. And I knew as soon as I can get out of here, I'm going to do something at least I'm good at or that I love, because I don't want work to feel like work.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And you were also lucky to have this kind of mentality, because it's not easy to have this strong mentality at that age.
Yeah, I mean, I also didn't think I had any other option.
Yeah.
You know, I think at that age, it's like, what am I going to do? Just not have anything, not help my family? You know what I mean? I didn't feel like I really had much of an opportunity to do anything
plenty
else.
of people that at that age decide to do nothing and just stay at home or do the bad things that you were describing before. So
yeah, I think the other thing that helped me avoid those bad things is that nobody really wants the fat kid in a gang. You know, he's too slow. He's going to get caught by the cops, you know, easy to shoot at, you know, I'm a big target. You know, I honestly think that helped. I also think my personality is that I want to make people laugh. And, you know, when you're trying to look hard, you don't want someone busting jokes. So I was lucky in the sense that I was friends with like all the gangs. Like, you know, I would go hang out with one group of friends, and I knew some of them were like associated with Group A, and they'd say like, hey man, you know, we're hearing Group B is in the neighborhood. You might want to go home. And even if on the way home I passed Group B, they'd be like, yo, what are you doing? Like, it was all love. And I'm like, yo, I'm just going home. Like, you know, maybe go home with me. You know, like, why don't you guys not go to that party? You know, I'm like, I would do whatever I could to protect people. But I think for the most part, people knew. there was a time where I got arrested in a stolen car. I was 14 years old, and a buddy of mine, 14, the legal age to have a permit, a driver's permit is 16, license 17 in the state of New Jersey where I grew up. At 14 years old, a friend of mine who I knew was into a lot of illegal things pulls up in a brand new Mercedes, and he says like, yo, get in. We're going for a ride. And I was like, cool. And I got in without saying like, hey, where did you get a Mercedes? I just got in.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, once a couple blocks in, a couple, maybe 10 minutes into the drive, I was like, dude, where'd you get a Mercedes? He's like, I borrowed it. I was like, from who? Who in your family has a Mercedes? He's like, no, not from a family member. So you stole it. You didn't borrow it. And he's like, well, no, I'm going to put it back. That was his mentality. He's like, well, I'm going to put it back in that parking spot. So I just borrowing it. So I felt like, all right, we're having fun. We picked up a couple of friends. Again, this kind of stuff happened a lot in Newark, so I didn't think too much of it. A cop pulls us over because obviously we're not following the driving rules. And a lot of the friends that I was with were into some pretty bad stuff. But when we got out, they all told the cop, like, hey, don't arrest Alexis. He wants to go to college. Like, he's a good kid. Like, leave him alone. And the cop was like, all right, I'm going to take the three of you in. I'll let him go. So they let me go. Funny enough, when they got to the precinct, they told him, like, no, you let go of the guy who actually stole the car. We didn't. So the three of them got to be let go. So
no
it worked.
Way.
Yeah, it was like a nice finesse. It worked in their favor. But that was the kind of stuff, like, my friends would protect me. Like, if they knew something bad was about to happen or if something bad needed to go down, they, for the most part, would be like, yo, Alexis, they'd be like, yo, Lex, don't come this week. Or, yo, don't come to that party. You know what I mean? Don't come hang out with us. Like, they knew, like, let me make sure his record keeps clean. At the very least, so there's one of us who's doing good.
Okay. You were the hope for them. Basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's very interesting. And, well, you were lucky. You were a lucky guy. You're lucky to have a good family that was guiding you towards the right direction. And also lucky to have the right mentality on your own to say, I want to avoid these kind of things. I want to work. I want to get out of here.
Yeah.
So tell me more about you ended up in the second part of your life, like how you ended up in university, coming from a difficult background like this one.
So I was working in that factory job I told you about. And one summer, it was very hot. It was about 45 degrees centigrade or like 105 degrees Fahrenheit. It's extremely hot. And the air conditioner in the factory goes out. And I'm only telling you this story because I think it gives a good example as to how my mentality changed from, you want to get a good job to like, oh, like these are the types of jobs. So I'm working in the factory. It's sweltering hot. It's very hot. People are like drinking water. We're all covered in sweat. And I was supposed to drop the mail off in the offices part, not the factory, in the offices. I walk in, the air conditioner's blasting. Everyone's having a good time. And I said, how come the air conditioning works in here and not over there? And they said, oh, the air conditioning unit above the factory broke, but the one in here is working. I said, well, how come you guys aren't fixing that one? These are people that I see at like family parties and in my neighborhood. They're the ones that are suffering, and all the people who drive the nice cars and come from the nice neighborhoods to go work here, they're enjoying themselves and they make a lot more money. I said, how come you don't fix the air conditioning over there? And they said, well, legally, we only have to give the factory heat in the winter. It's not illegal. Like you don't have to have air conditioning. I said, yeah, but it's really hot. It's bad. And they said, well, we'll fix it when we get to it. And it was just very callous. And part of me thought like, okay, one, I never want to be that type of person. But two, how do I get to be the type of person that gets to work in an office and not a factory so that I don't have to suffer? And then I can lift, my family fortunes up. And that's what started me wanting to work more in an office setting. I always viewed myself, I think my dream was to have like a corner office and, a gold digging wife who didn't care about me and, whatever. I had multiple homes, because I just thought like that's the only thing you can really achieve, like to find someone who loves you for you is crazy. I did find that person, but I thought that's crazy. I'll just have a lot of money and they'll love me for my money and it's whatever, But like I saw myself in a corner office, but I never thought about what it takes to get there. Yeah. I just thought like if it all works out, I have a window viewing, Manhattan. That gave me an idea of like, all right, I need to start working jobs that are in an office and not there. At the same time, I started doing a class in school called Sound Technology, which went over like radio, television, and film. It was all like how to make a film, how to make a small film, how to work at a radio station in case those opportunities came up. And I really took a liking to the filmmaking part. And for 3 years, I made a bunch of short films. I didn't even have editing software, so we would have to film it all chronologically so that I can edit it in the camera. It was insane, right? But I started getting better and better at it. I watched a lot of films. My teacher told me, like, I'm really good and I have a gift. So I put together a portfolio and I submit to New York University, which is, one of the most heralded universities in the area. Getting into NYU is, not on par with like a Harvard or Yale, but it's a big name. Everyone knows NYU. That on your resume is huge. So I get accepted to two. I get accepted to Tisch, which is their filmmaking or like their creative, their arts school. And I get accepted to Stern School of Business because I always had really good business acumen because I learned so much from the folks in the office.
Yeah.
I always knew I was always a step ahead of all the other students when it came to business stuff. So I get accepted into both and I go to the school for an interview. And I remember my mother came with me and they told me how much they loved my films and how excited they are to have me and blah, blah, blah. Took me on a tour. And then at the end I said, hey, we didn't go over like scholarships or anything. Are we going to talk about how much money I'm getting to go to this school? And the lady was like, oh, we don't do financial aid, which is helping you pay. And we don't really we're a private university. We don't do scholarships like that. You have to be one of the more exceptional students as far as your grades. She said the most we can give you is $1,500 for the year. Now that's sounds like a lot of money, but it cost $100,000 a year to go to this school.
What?
So yeah. So I'm like, well, 1,500 is not going to get me far, unless you give me that every week. Yeah. And my mother looked at me on the drive home and she was like, hey, I'm really proud of you for getting into this school, and I don't want to burst your bubble, but I can't afford that. I think I can't afford that. And I knew that. And she's like, there's no way to really get financial aid that would cover that much. Like they just don't allow you to borrow that much. And she's like, I can't borrow that much. So I don't think you can go to this school. And I was very upset because I saw myself as a filmmaker and having this way out. And, my mother told me.
You were feeling the dream.
Yeah. But again, I wanted something I was good at. I think I learned this when I ended up, going to the corporate world and managing salespeople. Most salespeople get into sales because they think I want to have a lot of money, right? I make a lot of money. If I make the money I make in sales, if I sell a lot, I make a lot. And you feel like you're accomplished. It's a meritocracy in a way. The more you do, the more you get paid. And while that's true, what they find out, and when you do a lot of psychological research, what they like is to be acknowledged for the accomplishment. So salespeople will work harder if you congratulate them on sales versus if you just give them money. So if you tell someone you're doing a good job, and that just goes to show, like, I wanted to accomplish something. I wanted to be good at something. And I was good at filmmaking. And it was my dream at that moment. But my mom told me, like, look, it's not, this dream of yours won't happen this way. Like, she basically said to me, like, what happens if you go to school for 4 years? You're going to come out $400,000 in debt. And what are you going to be on the day one when you graduate school? And I'll be a filmmaker. And she's like, does that mean you're getting work right away? And I said, well, no, I'll probably have to go work in film and production until someone trusts me as a director. And she's like, right. So when you get out of school, you're just going to go back to living in Newark when all you've said is you want to get out of here and I want you to get out of here? He's like, why don't you? There was another school that gave me a pretty large amount of money, a scholarship. She's like, why don't you go to that school for business? And then when you get out, you can own the movie theaters. You can own the studio.
Did she say that?
Yeah. And it wasn't like, go work hard to be a filmmaker. She's like, why don't you get out? You can make so much money in the world of business that you could own the thing that you were going to work at. And then you can't be fired when you're the owner. You can be fired as a director. You can be fired as, someone else in production, a producer, but you can't be fired as the owner. And then you can make the films you want. And then if you want to be a director, you be the director. You're the boss. No one's going to tell you no. And it opened up a door. It opened up, like, it almost like you saw a whole new highway that you didn't know you could travel down. You're like, wait a minute. A kid from Newark with, a single parent that's working 5 days a week and, she drives a broken up minivan that's busted. And the kid from that can go be the owner of a studio? Like, I never even thought of that. And it just opened up my eyes to be like, okay, maybe I will go. A lot of people say, like, maybe that damaged the dream in a way. I don't think so. I think she opened up new doors of opportunity for me.
That's a very motivational speech she gave you.
It's like readjusting. Like, I already had the drive and determination. It's like, imagine you're driving, 80 miles an hour.
Yeah.
But if you're going in the wrong direction, does it really matter?
Yeah.
You know, and it made me realize like, oh, I could turn down this road if I want to. And there's a whole new destination for me, you know, and it really opened up my eyes to the possibility of I can dream bigger. I can be bigger. I always had a lot of confidence, but what do you point that confidence in, you know?
Yeah.
And since I was a kid, all I ever said I want to be a comedian. I want to be a comedian. That's all I ever said. Because I think when I learned English, Spanish is my first language. I learned English from watching television and obviously with friends and stuff. But a lot of what I would watch was stand-up comedians. There used to be a channel called Comedy Central that when I was young would just constantly show different, you know, now it's on TikTok, but it would just constantly show jokes, different comedians on different shows and different stages, men, women, everyone, just boom, here's a joke, boom, another one, here's another one. And I would just watch that all day and I said, wow, I can't believe they're doing this with the English language. You know, the word I thought meant this can mean that. And it kind of taught me how to speak in a way, which is why I think I learned to be funny. And it's because I watched so much of this. But I used to want to be a comedian. I was at a holiday party for my mother's job. She worked at a hospital and somebody goes, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? That's what you ask every kid, right?
Yeah.
At least in America. And I said, my mother covered my mouth. I'm not making this up. She covered my mouth and she said, computer science. So instead of comedian, she turned it into computer science.
No way.
And in that moment, I'm like, oh, I'm going to disappoint my mother greatly because I don't want to work on a computer. But I thought like, oh, I could go into business. I could own the comedy clubs, you know, I could do comedy while having a job that pays me well. I don't have to be that struggling artist. So it opened up those possibilities for me that I didn't have to just go the one way. I could go, you know, there's many ways to get from point A to point B. It's not just a straight line.
Absolutely.
So I went to school for business and, you know, graduated with flying colors. I got 2 bachelor's degrees in 3 years. The only reason I went back for my 4th year was that I met my wife in college so we could walk down the aisle, you know, graduate together. So I went back and took like really boring classes just to have 2 extra classes so we could walk together.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, it was her idea. I'm not going to take full credit. But I give a lot of credit to the women in my life. The women I grew up basically being raised by 4 women, my mom, my aunt, my grandmother, and my older sister. I always give a lot of credit to the women in my life. And in particular, I feel like my goodwill, you know, my taking care of me was ushered from my mom to my wife, but not in a fold my clothes, cook my food, not like that. It's just what's the guidance, you know, making sure I'm stuck in a straight line, you know, I don't slip into bad habits or make bad decisions. You know, I feel like my wife really understood who I was very quickly, and we have a very strong partnership and a strong bond. We often say we married our best friend, but I think a lot of that is like the guidance that we give each other. We talk to each other like, here's the way, let me cut to the chase. Let me say it the way it needs to be said without trying to be sensitive in this moment. And it works well for each of us because we've helped guide each other in a very strong way, I think, but not just in a way that we think would be successful, in a way of like, how do you do that while also following your dreams? You know, how do you do that without sort of pushing aside who you really want to be? And, you know, my mother, I think from an early age was like, here's what you need to do. Don't get in trouble, be respectful. You learn those lessons. But then as you get older, you know, my mom never loved the fact that I was funny. She was always like, you got to stop, you know, it's upsetting people, you know. She's like, you can't say things like this, you know, to other people. Meanwhile, my wife will laugh and she'll say, write that down. That's funny. Even if I'm being disrespectful to her, like in the joke, you know, like even if the joke is on her, she'll be like, that's very funny. Write that down. Because she'll know if I don't write it down, I'll forget I said it. And then I can't say it on stage.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a pretty unique relationship. It's not easy to find such a good partner and to, you know, grow together, not only being together, but literally grow together.
Yeah, because you have to keep falling in love with this person because you're going to change. Yeah. We met when we were teenagers, you know? Like, I don't know how, but she continues to fall in love with me. You know, I was like, she's beautiful, she's smart, she's driven. Me, I mean, good God, I don't know what trick I've played on her this many years, but thank God.
You're a fantastic person, Alexis, and you know it. Don't say that.
Thank you. I was really just looking for the compliments.
So, going back to when you joined Staples as a manager, you told me that you were very good in negotiating big deals, and you leverage a lot your negotiation skills to not only win some big names in terms of, you know, clients, but also I don't know if you can tell, if you can say it. If you cannot say it, we cut it. But
No, I could say it.
About your layoff, because at some point you've been laid off from Staple. But tell me more.
So I got the job. It was my second job out of college. My first job out of college, I quit very quickly. I'm like, I don't like this job. So I was looking around for a job. I got an entry-level sales job at the corporate division of Staples, the office supply store. And it was all going business to business, knocking on doors, making sure that they were ordering from us and not from other business delivery folks. Very quickly, I got, was number one in the region. I was fighting with someone else on the West Coast to be number one and number two in the country every month. And it was just, honestly, like, people were like, what are you doing different? I'm like, man, I'm literally just walking in. Someone told me, an old salesperson in that first job I had, that I was there for like 2 months and I hated it. But a really old sales guy who's been there forever, he said, hey, man, you could learn everything you want in college. You could read every book about sales. At the end of the day, people buy from people they like, and that's it. So just go out there and don't be someone people hate. It was like pretty simple advice. So when I got this new job, I just thought, like, let me go, not put high pressure sales tactics on anyone. Let me just shake some hands and try to get to know people. And the first few weeks and the first few months, didn't amount to too much. I was doing fine. I wasn't doing great. But then little by little, all those people that I didn't badger and all those people that I just like, hey, man, shared a couple jokes with, made them laugh, or saw them at the bar after work and didn't bother them about work, just came over and, was funny and try to be personable and find a connection with them outside of what we were doing for work. All of those people suddenly started reaching out to me for sales, and my numbers blew up. And that was like really good. Like, one piece of advice that I give everyone is learn from people who've done it already. They have the best advice. They have nothing to lose. And they don't have anything to gain by giving you bad advice. Even if you think, oh, the technology is different and the world is different and that doesn't matter. Trust me, there's kernels of advice that will always help you as you move forward. Some things just don't change. And that was one piece of advice that really helped me. So when I got into Staples, by the time I was 24, I had graduated from their management training with the highest scores anyone had ever graduated with.
Wow.
And I could tell I was on the fast track to get promoted. I ended up managing 172 salespeople across 3 states.
Just say it slowly. 170?
172 salespeople.
That's huge.
Across 3 states. So New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. It was huge. It was a lot. And I was very young. At the time, 24 doesn't seem that young. But I remember the second day of work, I had to fire someone who lied. Wow. on their sales information. They said they were at meetings they weren't at, and then we found out that they were applying for other jobs, and so they had to get fired. So I remember I met with HR the day before, or human resources, because I just gotten the job. So you have to like sign up for new health care and all this other stuff and sign all the paperwork. So they called me back into the office and they said, hey, here's the information we have on, we'll call him Brian, we found out he's been lying on his sales calls. He hasn't been working, and that's immediate termination. Once you're lying on documentation, immediately terminated. So he has to get fired. I said, okay, let me know how that goes. And they were like, no, you're the boss. You got to do it. I was like, I got to do it, So I found out that he has kids older than me. I found that out because as we're letting him go, he started crying and he yelled out, I have kids older than you.
That's so bad.
And I felt terrible because I don't want to take somebody's livelihood away. Yeah. But in that moment, you realize the weight of, I'm not just getting promoted, making more money. I'm going to be controlling people's livelihood. And it made what I did very real. And the way I spoke to salespeople after that was very serious. I'm like, this is your job. This is the way you put food on your table. This is the way you feed your kids. Let's take this serious. And I worked really hard, not just to maintain those relationships with them and find connections outside of work and make it so that they felt comfortable around me. But I needed them to also know that in a sales world, you are what you sow, you reap what you sow. You only stay in this job as if you continue to sell at a performance that inhibits you staying in your job. It's a very rough burn and churn world. And I was having a good time because I was really good at it, but I can see that, my boss told me like, hey, you're not going to have 172 Alexises. These are people that some of them are stars. Some of them need to work to become stars. And some of them need to work really hard just to do the bare minimum. Your job is to make everyone around you better. And I think of all of the massive names that have become football coaches. Daniele De Rossi just got sacked.
Yeah.
But there was a guy, you didn't need to inspire Daniele De Rossi.
No.
He walked in inspired. You needed to match his level. But how do you get players that aren't like that to play at your level? You can't just walk in and say, be like me. You need to coach them up. And I needed to do the same thing. It was very rough. It was a we call it baptism by fire here in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it was
I got that.
You hit the ground, you better go. And everyone around you needs to be good at their jobs or else you're fired.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Wow. And you were 24 years old.
Yeah. I was 24. So
that's insane, because if you think in Italy, when you are 24, you are about to finish your graduate program.
Oh.
So imagine the difference.
Yeah. I bet Italy's a little different too. Like in America, you're looked down upon for living with your family after the age of 18. Where like I have friends from Italy that was like, no, I lived with my mom until I was 28, 29, and then I met a girl, and then I moved out. And like, no, in America, you probably wouldn't even have gotten a date. Like in America, it's like go be a part of the industrial, complex. Go work, or else you're nothing.
Yeah.
It's a very different life.
Yeah.
But when I got promoted, so my job was negotiating large contracts. I got flown all around the country to negotiate the biggest contracts. That's what I was best at. Once I reached a certain level of sales, and I had a lot of accounts, they would say, okay, now you need to come to Utah and negotiate this sale, or, okay, you got to go back to New York, you got to go to LA, or you got to go to Texas. And I would walk in when the deal was a little bit rough, and it was my job to make sure it got done. Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, Richemont, American Express, all the largest contracts you could think of in America, at some point I was involved in it, or I was the closer. So it was my job to come in and get the job done. So when I was negotiating for the promotion, I was very smart. I realized, okay, we're going out and getting a lot of market share. There's a point where this isn't going to continue. If we suddenly acquire a lot of market, you don't need 172 salespeople anymore. And it's America. You're just going to fire everyone you don't need, and you're going to give us no notice. And I knew that. So I thought, okay, we're probably about a year or two away from a market share where they're going to restructure this. And I don't know if I'm going to keep having a job. So I'm going to negotiate my contract so that if I get laid off, I get a large severance. So my wife is a nurse. I get health benefits. I get health care through her being a nurse. So I'm like, I know I don't need that. And I know that's the most expensive part, because I just spent the last, while seeing friends get hired. And I know the health insurance is the most expensive part. So I think on average, a company pays something like $40,000 a year to cover the health care benefits of each employee. So I knew there was some money in there that I could play with. So I negotiated my contract fully, and right before I agreed, I said, "How much are you guys paying for my health care?" Because as a manager, you get even better health care. I said, "How much are you guys paying for my health care?" And they told me the number, and I said, "Interesting." I said, "Hey, we never went over severance," and they said, "Oh, well, severance is standard at your level. It's 2 months." And I said, "I want 24 months. I want 2 years of severance." And at the time, it was 60% of my pay with no bonus. I said, I want 85% of my pay with a retro of my bonus, so a small portion of my bonus averaged out. And they said, absolutely not. There's no way we can give you 2 years of severance. And I said, how about if I don't need health insurance? And as soon as I said that, their eyes lit up, because I knew that was the one piece.
Of course.
That's the most expensive. And they said, so I knew if I asked for 2 years, I'd be able to negotiate down. So we settled on 18 months severance at 85%, no bonus. That was the negotiation. All I wanted was over a year of bonus. So of my pay. So I got it for a year and a half. I shook hands, and within 2 years, boom, everyone starts getting laid off. I knew I was close, because I had to lay off a bunch of my salespeople. And I knew if I did that on a Monday, by Friday, I would be getting laid off. So on Monday, I laid off a bunch of people. I filled out all the paperwork on Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, I had a pretty good day. And then I got a message that I'm being asked to come into the office for a meeting at noon on a Friday. Now, for everyone who's ever worked in an office, noon on a Friday means you're getting laid off. That's it, or you're getting fired. That's all that means. No one's asking you to come into the office at noon on a Friday, because they don't want to be there either. So I already knew I had one of those BlackBerry World phones that was like, it was like made of steel. This thing could, it was like the president and me had the same phone. If you type in your password 10 times wrong, it wipes the phone.
Yeah.
So I typed in my password 9 times incorrectly. I put it back in my pocket. I walk into the meeting. As soon as they go, well, I knew. I took out my phone. I typed in my password incorrectly. It starts wiping. I hand it back to them. And I said, I'll go clean my stuff. And they said, well, don't you want to hear? And I said, no, I just did this to a bunch of salespeople on Monday. I already know what you're going to say to me. And they're like, are you worried? I said, no, I got 18 months. I'll be fine. And that was the first time I didn't work since I was 11 years old.
Wow.
So I was 11. I've been working nonstop. Now I'm 27, 28.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly I don't have a job. I'm getting paid to do nothing. I sat on the couch for a few days. My wife was like, what if you're getting paid to stay home. You've never had to work. You've never not had to work. Like you've always had to work. You're getting paid to stay home, but you're getting paid to go do whatever you want. That's a better way to look at it. My wife was like, what have you always wanted to do that you couldn't do because of money? And I thought like, do I want to go try to be a filmmaker now? And no, probably not. That dream had kind of gone away a little bit. But what I've always wanted to do, the core of who I wanted to be was always a comedian. So I said, I've always wanted to do comedy. My wife said, go. You have a year and a half. Go do what you want. You're getting paid enough where we're not going to lose our apartment. She's like, I'm making money. I have our health benefits. She's like, we're always going to have health benefits. She's like, go do what you want. You have a year and a half to find a way to make money. And literally, I mean, changed my life, saved my life in many ways. I had, when I was working in the corporate world, I was making a lot of money, a lot more money than anyone in my family had ever made. And it's hard for me to explain this, but you think when you grow up poor that all you need is money. If I have money, these things would be fixed. And truth be told, money does fix a lot of things that you don't have when you're poor. But the way I explained it to my friends was, imagine you have a basement, the level below the first floor of your house. And you open it and you see a bunch of water coming in. So a bunch of flooding water. And you look over and there's this big hole that a lot of water's coming in. And above it says money. Well, I plugged that hole. I plugged it. But the water didn't stop coming in. Because I never looked at all the smaller holes that said like fulfillment, enjoyment, dreams. I never looked at that because all I ever cared about was how am I going to get money to get me out of Newark to stabilize my family. But was I fulfilled? I wasn't fulfilled. I hated the job I did. So now I have 18 months to go do something I love. I went on stage and from that first moment, I knew that's who I wanted to be. So from that point, I just needed to find a way to continue to make a little bit of money until I got big enough that I can, sell tickets or, in this case, be on TV,
Beautiful. And I love the fact that there was, again, a woman behind your future because you were there laying on your couch saying, okay, I have a year and a half. And then a woman came in, and it's your wife this time, and told you a motivational thing that waked you up, basically.
It really did. Again, it's all about, I don't have imposter syndrome. I know that's very popular.
Yeah. By the way,
like people talking about. Yeah.
It's common.
And I get it. I totally understand why people have it. I never had it because anytime I walk in a room, my brain's always telling me like, prove to them you belong here versus, oh no, I don't think I belong here. My brain just thinks of it the reverse way, which is like, I always have a chip on my shoulder. But this time I didn't walk in a room. I was in a room by myself and I had to think about like, who do I want to be? I've never had to think about that because I was always just proving everyone else wrong. I never had to prove to myself who I was. My wife gave me the keys to do that. She's the one who made it okay for me to think that way. And, when we were in college, she didn't have a lot of money and, she had a very difficult family life. And, I was working 7 days a week. So I paid for her car insurance when we were in college. I paid for her car note sometimes. I bought her food. When she couldn't get to and from work, I would take care of her. Those type of things. But it's just not because like, oh, look at all the money I have. It's just if I'm working, we might as well use this, And then she can keep going to school. And then she went to nursing school after that. And I wanted her to focus on that. So I did what I could to help balance out her life. And now she's doing it for me. And it was beautiful. No one's ever really done that for me, besides like a family member, right?
Yeah.
Like my mom. I never had that done. It was a beautiful moment. She really saved my life in many ways.
That's lovely. From the moment you left your job till the moment you joined the actual TV show you are in, what happened there?
So much. a lot of bad comedy shows. Performing for two people in a laundromat, hoping they don't leave. Oh my God, yeah, many times. You when you start out, you're just doing open mics, which is where you sign up to perform, and nobody cares. Everyone else are comedians. They don't care what you're saying. And once you start getting better, and those people that you performed around, they start promoting their own shows. They start doing their own shows. Comedians will perform anywhere there's a microphone. I've done shows in Chinese food restaurants. I did a show at a funeral home once. I've done shows, bars. Yeah, there was a funeral home that they would rent out a comedian, I think a family member owned it, and they would give them one of the rooms that like people bereave, and the comedians would stand where the casket usually goes. It was ridiculous, dude. Again, anywhere, and people went because they thought it was cool, like a comedy show in a funeral home, and I think some of your jokes had to be about death.
No way, come on.
Oh yeah. It was brutal. Dark. Brutal. It's very brutal. I've performed in bar basements that had drips and the mice running around. Wherever somebody wants to throw a show, when you're young, when you're starting out, you'll do any show because you just want to get in front of a real audience and see if your jokes work, and you want to get better. And the more you perform, the better you get. 10,000 hours, right? So anywhere that'll have you, I did. And you're performing for free. And my wife's like, you've been out all night. And sometimes you'll get free drinks at the bars. So like you've been out all night drinking, enjoying yourself, having a good time, and there's no money. You've made no money. So during the day, you have to do things to make some money. I did everything from, I started a food tour company. I was doing production. I did pizza tours because I know a lot about pizza here in the States. I started a production company that filmed like example videos on how to business stuff and, mechanics and, mathematicians. I filmed anyone who needed me. I worked, at productions on TV shows, just getting, coffees for people, whatever would give me money during the day. I went and did because I just needed to find a way to bring home some money so that I could keep performing and get better at stand-up. I acted. I started doing auditions for voiceovers. I was 3 characters on BoJack Horseman, which is a very popular cartoon on Netflix. Anything at all. Every odd job I could find, I did it.
And how long was that period?
That was 2009 till about 2018. So in 2018, I got picked to be a part of the ABC Showcase.
So it was like almost 10 years.
It was just before. It was about 9 years. My manager sends me to an audition, and she just goes, hey, just be funny. Don't worry about the acting part. Just be as funny as you can. I did it. I go back home. I said, I don't know if it's good or bad. And she goes, they want you back tomorrow. They sent me a script. I looked it up. I realized it's already been acted. I was like, what is this? If it's already on air, why am I a part of it? She's like, dude, just go and be as funny as possible. So I went. I changed the script around to be even funnier, and I kept adding lines, and everyone's laughing in the room, and they say thank you. There's not like yes or no. It's just thank you. I walk out. I call my manager. I said, hey, what's going on? And she said, hey, they liked you again. They want you back next week. So I go next week, and they reveal that I'm one of the 12 people out of 25,000 people that audition. Wow. They choose 12 to be a part of something called the Showcase. ABC is a very big television network out here. So I was one of the 12 in the Showcase. My wife's like, you're an actor now? I said, apparently. I was like, I didn't know. They think it. Here we go. So I had to take like 4 months off of doing anything to just like go every day with this group, the other 11 people. And you're doing different scenes from different shows, and they're, guiding you on how the bunch of directors are there telling you, giving you notes. And I never got any notes. I was so confused. I said, people were leaving some of these scenes crying. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm just doing it. And they say, thank you. Like, why are you crying? Why are you writing stuff down? I'm never writing anything down. I'm never taking notes. And I pulled one of the directors aside. I said, why am I not getting notes? And he said, you have to have a meeting with the head of casting. So I had a meeting with the head of casting, and she said, you're a very naturally gifted actor. You're not acting. You're just being yourself.
Yeah.
And it takes actors a long time to learn that. So we're not giving you notes because we don't want you to think you're an actor. We want you to keep doing what you're doing. So I said, okay. And she goes, how do you look at a script? She asked me. And I said, I've never learned to read a script before. So I look at it as a joke, right? Like a joke is a premise, a setup, and then a punchline. So I realized the end of the script is a punchline, whether you like it or not, whether it's a sad scene or a funny scene or a smart scene, the end is the punchline to me. So I just build to it the same way I would a joke on stage. If the punchline is me angry, I can't be angry through the whole joke. You have to watch me get angrier, or I surprise you with the anger, but then you look back and realize there were little moments where I was starting to get a little angrier and I was foreshadowing it. That's what's funny into somebody's brain. So I just do a scene like that. And she goes, okay, good. Don't change that. I said, okay. Not getting any notes. Everyone else are trained actors. They're all going me, moo, moo, moo before shows and, training their throats. I'm sitting there drinking coffee and I'm reading, Instagram and Twitter on my phone. They did not like me at all. They would try to make fun of me, but I was too funny. I would make fun of them back. They would get mad at me for making fun of them back. Yeah, it was a lot. Until we got to the theater. So the last week of training, we went to the theater that we would perform at. And as soon as we walked in, the head of casting for Los Angeles, who we had never met, but we know how powerful she is, she was sitting in the audience and she said, welcome to the theater. This is where you're going to perform. I need each of you to do a 1-minute monologue, which is just you by yourself on stage. Wow. She said, you guys figure out the order. So we all go off stage and all the other 11 are panicking. They're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh, what about that scene? They're all Googling scenes or looking up old scripts. And as they were talking, I just walked out onto the stage and I did a minute joke that I have about my wife saving my life when I got roofied. Someone put a drug in my drink and she saved my life. So I know that's a minute long. Yeah, it's a long.
Your life is
it's crazy. So she saved my life. Thank God she's a nurse. And I know the end ends in a funny joke, but most of the joke feels like a story until the end where you're like, oh shit, he said something funny. It's very emotional. So I was like, all right, I just walked out onto the stage and I started doing that. And everyone else had no idea that I was just walking out to go do that. They were all worried about who was going to go first. And they were all trying to negotiate. No, you go first and blah, blah. I just walked out on stage. I did it. Everyone was laughing. The lady was laughing. Some of the people that worked with us were laughing. The guy fixing the lights was laughing. Some of the actors I was working with were laughing. I walked off stage and I go, whoever's next, go ahead. From that point on, I had all their respect because they realized I may not be a trained actor, but I know what I'm doing on stage. And that's when they were asking me for advice. But long story short, when that ends, you get to be a part of pilot season, which is where the networks will call on you to come in and act. Like you don't have to try to audition. They're going to bring you in because they already are looking at you to say, okay, he fits these parts in all these shows that are going to be coming up next year. And my wife, when I finished the showcase. I was the only actor that got a standing ovation. I walk out afterwards. And by the way, the audience is filled with agents and, heads of...
So professional people, you make laugh. I mean, that's the crazy part, because when you act in front of a normal audience, it's easier to make them laugh rather than a professional audience.
Don't forget, I treat everyone the same.
Yeah, no, I understand, but trust me, I mean, they hear so many jokes and so many comedians that at some point they might not laugh anymore. So
yeah, it's true.
Having you making them laugh.
But for me, it was like, and maybe someone listening to this will think like, what am I going to do? I'm not funny. That's fine. Use whatever gift you have. For me, I knew I could be funny in that moment. So the night of the showcase, which is after 4 months of all that training, the audience is filled with agents and studio heads and executives, and all the most important people in the business are here. It's like one of those dates on the calendar everyone has to go to, like Champions League final. All the biggest soccer people in the world are there. Same thing. So it's like the Emmys. It's like, the Emmys, the Oscars, all those things are next, above this. So I walk out and all the agents are like pushing to talk to me. Hi, I'm oh my God, Alexis, you were great. Yo, I have an audition for you. Yo, I got this thing. Everyone's trying to get me. On the drive home, my wife reads out a note. Like I was on cloud nine, man. I was like, I'm the greatest actor of all time, I'm like me, Humphrey Bogart, Robert De Niro, the greatest, icons, I was thinking, where in LA do I want to live? That's what I'm thinking already. And my wife, who had been kind of a bit standoffish the whole time, she reads out like a 7-page note on her phone in the Uber home. It was so uncomfortable. The Uber driver was looking at me through the rearview mirror like, yo, dude, are you good? And it was about all of the things that she wanted me to do differently in the relationship and ways that I've neglected the house. It was really uncomfortable for me to hear. And I kept thinking, like, why would you do this tonight? On one of the most proud moments of my career, why would you do this? And as we would have conversations after that, it was a very awkward couple of weeks because I'm thinking, does she want to leave me? Like, I didn't know I failed so bad as a husband. I've been working hard, but sometimes you lose focus on what's important. And when I asked her, I said, why would you do it that night? You know, I was on cloud nine. And she said, I've been trying to do it for months, but I didn't want to distract you because I knew how important this showcase was to you. And I was just holding on for dear life so that I could wait until I knew it wouldn't like ruin your dreams. And that's when I realized, like, oh, she's not mad at me. She loves me. She loves me at a level that most people don't, you know, that most people will never find a love like that. Like, I don't even know if I have that in me to hold on to something for months that's just gnawing away at you because you don't want to ruin what someone else is working so hard on. And it was beautiful. And I did and you know, we talked a lot and we discovered some of the ways where, you know, I had neglected her, but I thought she was neglecting me because sometimes you both get so focused on what you're doing, you lose focus on, and you lose track of what's important. It was a beautiful moment in the end. In that moment, like that Uber driver probably thought we got divorced the next day. You know, that Uber driver was like, there's no coming back from this, you know? But it made our relationship even stronger.
Yeah, of course.
And in that moment, she had basically told me like, hey, I need some help. You know, now it's been 9 years of me carrying the financial load. And, you know, she's a nurse in New York City. It's a really difficult place to be a nurse. And she sees a lot of trauma every day. And she said, I just need some help. And I need you to help support the house more, you know, financially as well. And I said to her, I was like, okay, I got pilot season coming up, which is all the acting and stuff that comes up from this showcase. Can you give me like a year of just following this dream? If nothing works out, I'll figure out a way to support the house more. And she's like, absolutely. She's like, another year is not a problem. She's like, in fact, that'll be about 10 years since you've been a comedian. So I started working. And like maybe 3 or 4 weeks before that year is up, I get an offer to make my podcast, which I had started in 2015, to put it on TV, to license it. It completely changed everything for us, you know? And she always says like, you know, I know you were working on these things before, but she even says like your focus changed after that conversation because, you know, comedy seems like something that's a lot of fun and you're just hanging out. You don't realize it's also a business. And I think at first I didn't want to treat it like business because I'd done that for so long. But then after a while, you're like, okay, I'm good at this now. And people know I'm good at this. Now I need to find a way to make this work. And thank God I had started a podcast about soccer in 2015 with another comedian because unbeknownst to me, that had completely changed my career track. It offered me another lane on that highway that I didn't even know I had. And that show flipped to another network. After COVID, that network kind of died. I switched to another network. And right around that time, CBS, which is, you know, a lot of people who are football fans here may know Kate Abdo, Thierry Henry, Jamie Carragher, Micah Richards, that four. I'm on the same network, you know? Wow. That network reached out to me to do a segment on Serie A, actually.
No way.
Yeah, that was the first thing they asked me to do. They wanted me to come in and roast what we called player fits, like the outfits that players wore going into the game. And it was a good opportunity because at that time, Americans had started really playing there. So Weston McKennie had just joined Juventus. And, you know, there were people that were famous like Giroud and other really big names that people who don't just follow Serie A would know in the league. So they asked me to do some bits, but it was live television. And I think it was at the end, I called my agent and I said, I think that was a test for something because they were very impressed afterwards because they did something which was really frustrating. They sent me the photos that I was going to make fun of and the videos. And then when I got there, on the wall behind me is a big screen, was different photos.
No way.
So I'm on live television. I have to, one, not curse. I can't swear, which is not easy for a comedian. No. And two, I have to think of new jokes on the spot because none of the jokes work. In particular, they wanted me to surprise the cast that was already there. There was a gentleman named Mike Grella who played for Leeds United and some really big teams, played in MLS, and he's Italian. His name is Michele Grella. He's on the show to talk about the Italian league. He had a picture where his tie was undone and the shirt was open. And I was going to say he looked like a detective whose partner had just been shot. You know, like I had all these jokes about that. The photo of his that pops up, his tie is buttoned, his suit is perfect, and it was like a paisley flowery texture on the jacket. And I look back, and in my head, I'm like, can I curse on this? I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. You might have to bleep this, but I go, in my head, I go, what the f-? As soon as I turn, because I'm like, that's not even the photo. And I had, again, like they keep screwing me, but I have to make a joke. So I just go, hey, I can't even make fun of my, dude, you found my grandmother's couch. You turned it into a suit, but at least you found her couch. It's beautiful. And everyone laughed. I heard people behind the cameras laughing, the production crew laugh. So I'm just like, wow. Dude, you put me in the most high pressure situation, but I'd been in high pressure negotiations. I've been performing for 2 people at a Chinese food restaurant, and I don't want them to leave so the show's not over. So I'm just trying to make them laugh. I made executives of ABC laugh. I can make these people laugh, you know? So in that moment, I thought of a funny joke. I said it. It popped. I went home. I called my agent. I said, bro, I think that was a test. They lied. They changed the photos on me, but I made everyone laugh. I didn't curse. No bad words came out of my mouth.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah, they were, can I do live television? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
And after that, I get a job offer. I get an offer. They're starting a new television show in the morning. They want a comedian, but they want someone who knows the game, but they also want someone who knows how to, you know, perform on live television. They want someone who, when all the chips fail, when the photos don't load, or, you know, the interview doesn't show up, or the Zoom fails or something, they want someone they can go to and we'll save that segment. And they were like, based on what you did on that Serie A segment, we think you're that guy. And that, it literally changed my life forever. I remember when the phone call came, I got a text from the head of CBS saying, hey, we need to talk. What time is good for you today? Not what day is good for you. What time is good for you today? And my wife and I had tickets for a very special documentary that she wanted to watch. I got us 2 tickets. It started at 8 p.m. So I told them, I said, we can talk at 7. But I didn't realize I had to be near the theater. So I was like, where am I going to go? There's a famous pizza shop called Joe's. It's very busy. It was in Spider-Man, the movie. That's why a lot of people know it. But I was thinking, it's very busy. I go, but you know what? Who cares? You want to talk to Alexis? I'm going to be at a pizza shop. You know what I mean? Like, and this is my power move.
Yeah.
As soon as I pick up the phone, he goes, it's very noisy. Where are you? I said, I'm getting a slice of pizza. What's up, man? How can I help you? Boom, power move, you know? He kind of laughed like you did. He was like, okay. He's like, hey, man, I know you're a comedian. I know you spend every night out till 4 a.m. performing, but we're starting a new show and we think you might be the right guy for it. He's like, it's a morning show, though, and it's 5 days a week, so your life is going to change dramatically. It starts filming very early. You're going to have to wake up and probably go to sleep very early. I'm only asking you if you think it's the right move for you, because I know how much you love doing stand-up. This might shake that up a little bit. And he said, it films in Stamford, Connecticut, which is just outside the city. He's like, you tell me if it's up to you. Why don't you think about it and have a conversation with your wife? And I said, actually, she heard you this whole time, so I don't need to have a conversation. She's already giving me the thumbs up. I have 2 questions to ask. I said, 1, do I have to wear a suit? He said, no. I said, question number 2, do I have to move? And he goes, nah, Brooklyn's close enough where you could drive. And I said, okay, I'll do it. You'll hear from my agent tomorrow morning. Wow. So I go to watch the movie. I get a text from my agent. And he's like, did you just take a fucking business call from a pizza shop? and I said, oh, you heard? And he goes, yeah, we just got an offer for you to be on CBS. He's like, when you get out of your documentary, he's like, call me because we need to talk about this quick.
Nice.
And I just sat in that film without knowing that my life was changed forever. Wow. You know, and maybe it's not easy for people outside of the States to understand, but getting on television for sports is not easy.
Getting on in Italy as well. I mean,
getting on TV when you look like me to talk about sports is also not easy. No, it's true. Someone told me I'm the first fat guy on soccer television. I've broken the mold without even having to sit on it. It's important. And I know that because a lot of the comments I get from Europeans are like, who is this fat guy? He's never even played. But it is what it is. Obviously, using the word soccer just upsets the Brits, so I don't care, even though they invented the word. It's their word. They told us that was the name of the sport. It's their fault. It's true. It's association football. It's association became a soccer. Anyway, it's completely changed my life. So you asked me what got you from point A to point B. I never followed a straight road. I followed my dreams, but also other people opened those doors for me, you know? Other people let me realize that, okay, your talent is more than what you think you can achieve. Go even further, dream bigger, go farther. You know, people had my back. Like I have friends that are like, I did this all on my own. I did this on my own in the sense that no one wrote a joke for me. You know, no one told me what to say. No one told me to say those things in those moments. No one told me to go do the Serie A thing. No one told me to start a soccer podcast. Those were all my ideas. But who gave me the ability to do those and follow those things were all the women in my life, you know? It was the friends I had growing up who said, yo, Alex, don't worry, he didn't steal this car, man. He's going to college. All those people who paved the way for me to be able to walk by myself. But that road was paved by somebody, not me. I took the opportunity as it presented itself, and I always will. That's something about me. If an opportunity presents itself, I will take it, because you only eat what you can get, what you can hunt for. And I'm going to always be hunting for opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
It's the people around me.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I mean, I think that there are few very important part of your stories that is your attitude and the people that surrounded you, or that you decided to be surrounded by. Because, you choose your wife's choosing you. But, it's a mutual decision. You found her and she found you. And it was in the same, trajectory of your family. You wanted to grow together. They wanted for you the best. So that's very lovely. That's very touching. We are heading towards the end of the interview. And as always, I try to ask the same question to each person I interview. And the question is related to the mission of this channel, that is inspiring others together to inspire. So I wanted to ask you if, in addition to what you already shared, that is amazing, and thank you for that, if there was a moment in your life during which you realized something, or you met someone that changed the way you look at something, or it changed the way you behave, basically, that inspired you, that could inspire others.
Yeah, there was a moment growing up where there's not that many famous people from Newark. Whitney Houston is a very famous name. But, I think by this time she was already doing crack. So she wasn't that famous anymore. But, she was still beloved. She was addicted to crack. I don't know what to tell you.
No.
There was a rapper named Redman who was very famous. And actually, my buddy worked with his mom, and we were like, Miss Noble, because his name's Reggie Mobile. It was really cool. And there was a basketball player by the name of Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq, as everyone calls it.
Yeah, pretty famous.
In awe of this human being, And he would always talk about, like, I'm from Newark or whatever. But no one knew where he was from. And I remember I was talking to a friend. He was like, oh, yeah, his mom lives, like, right over there. And we're like, what? Like, Shaq's mom lives over here? And he was like, yeah, do you want to go look at the house? And we're like, yeah, of course I want to go look at the house. Bunch of kids on bikes, just going over there. And we was like, let's go knock on the door. I know his mom. I'm like, bro, you don't know his mom. Shut up. Knocks on the door. And she's like, oh, hey, Pedro. I'm like, oh, my God, yo, Shaq's mom knows you. And I was like, yo, Shaq really lived here? And she's like, yeah. I was like, yo, that's crazy. Are you lying to us? And she showed us photos of Shaquille O'Neal growing up. And I was shocked, and I was like, yeah, wait a minute. Like, someone from here did something big, Yeah. Like, that's crazy. Like, the world knows who he is, and he's from here. Like, Whitney Houston, you almost don't even associate her with Newark, because when I found out about her, she was already huge. The fact that she was from Newark was like a side piece, it was like a side thing. And Redman is like, yeah, everyone knows you, but you're a rapper, and that only gets you so far. And it's only if you like hip hop. Bro, everyone knows who Shaquille O'Neal is. Yeah. Someone who's never seen Shaquille O'Neal play basketball knows who Shaquille O'Neal is. And I was like, bro, he's from here. It completely changed my mindset. I'm like, oh, we could do whatever we want. We don't just have to be from Newark. You know what I mean? We don't have to be famous or popular in Newark. Like, you could touch the world. It was crazy.
It was an example.
Yeah, it opened the door to be like, oh my God, the world is a possibility. It's not just this city. You know what I mean? That was, like, for me, one of the biggest moments of my life. I was just like, bro, I could be Shaq. without the height or the skills. But yeah, but I can have the impact he had.
As a symbol.
Yeah. No, I'm going to be Shaq, dude. I'm getting leg lengthening surgery. And I'm going to get really good at basketball. No, it's like, it was blew my mind. I'm like, this guy's, I don't know, back then at sneaker stores, his shoe size was 22, which in American, that might be like 80 something in Europe, He had 22-inch feet.
Yeah, it's huge.
They used to have cardboard cutouts of him holding his shoes, but everywhere. And I was like, this guy is from Newark. And he's not like on the news, It's not because he committed a crime. He didn't like rob a bank. It's like, this guy's famous and he's from Newark. It drove me nuts as a kid.
Have you ever met him?
Not yet. It's my dream to meet Shaq, man. But
we're gonna try. We're gonna try.
I don't just want to meet him in passing though. I want to have a conversation with him.
Yeah, of course. No, we're gonna try. Yeah. I'm gonna tag him. Let's see what happens.
Let's see. It literally is my dream to meet Shaq.
Yeah. Alexis, thank you very much. It was a very long and amazing discussion and interview. Thank you very much for sharing with us your life. There are some personal stuff in there that I really appreciated, and I think they are very inspirational for me. And I hope there will be inspiration for who's going to listen to this episode. And it was funny. It was very funny.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
We need to do it again, maybe in the future. The moment
in person.
That would be amazing. I can come to New York, or you
can come to New York. Yeah. Come to New York. We got better pizza.
Oh, come on.
It's true.
No, has not. Thank you, Alexis. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching this interview. Please remember to follow the channel if you want to keep updated on what I'm posting. And see you to the next interview. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alexis.
I couldn't even tell this was your first English one. You did a great job, dude.
Thank you. Thank you very much.